hardest thing for me in the separation was the fact that all the everything I believed in basically had been turned upside down, and I had a huge struggle in everything really, with my faith and my belief in love and marriage and God and absolutely everything.
The lowest point, I think, was actually filing for divorce itself.
I think what helped me get through those early days was actually my friends. They were the people who just came around me, supported me. They didn't need to know the details, they were just there for me. I think finding safe people to support you is really important.
We parted very amicably and worked hard at leaving each other with love, which was something I really believed in. I was quite proud of the fact that we managed to separate and divorce without the use of litigation or solicitors. We reached an agreement between us which was intended to help our sons and our future lives.
Take your time in what decisions you make. Don't be hurried, certainly if you have children, because it will affect, if you make a bad decision at the wrong time, you may live to regret it, and the most important thing is to actually not to regret the decisions you've made.
Tom, thank you for coming up. What was your background? How did you come to be here?
So I was married 5 years ago, and I got my divorce came through 2 years ago. I married a great woman, actually. We both individually and collectively made a number of pretty bad decisions that led to the end of our marriage.
So what happened?
So we'd only been married about just over a year, and my ex-wife told me that she didn't really want to be in the marriage, that it wasn't really working for her, and that she didn't really see a future in us having children together or being together. This was around about Christmas time, probably 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, and that really for me led to a bit of a wake-up call, a real period of soul-searching and kind of looking under every stone at what I might have been doing wrong, and I guess the issues that I hadn't been addressing, so the communication that we hadn't had, and really the things that we hadn't spoken about and dealt with. That was in the January time, and actually I had the help of some great friends as well, and also a book whose title was so sad I could barely bring myself to look at it, which was How to Save Your Marriage Alone. But it was a great book in that it gave me a couple of things. One was to prepare myself for the worst. So whatever I could imagine was the worst outcome, to prepare myself for that. And the second thing was really that in everything you only have two choices. And that is to continue to love or not to love, and that was a great realization to have at that stage in the proceedings. So I prepared myself for the worst. I decided to continue to love, and yes, so that was the position I was in, and that was great because that enabled me to address the three big bombshells that came in the following 4 months. And enable me to deal with that and to forgive. The bombshells being that I've slept with somebody else, that I've actually had an affair with somebody else, and the final one was that I'm pregnant with somebody else's baby. But having gone through that, having had a great support group, and really being able to address that and having a bit of an idea of what might be going on anyway, I was able to as you mentioned in one of the previous sessions, to kind of separate emotions from kind of the truth there.
What did you feel like when she came out with those bombshells?
I was quite pleased that the truth had come out. I had a little bit of an inkling, and as I say, I think I prepared myself for that. So I felt quite emotionally removed from that situation, and was able to, I don't quite know how, but to say, I forgive you. I still really passionately believe in that we've got a great marriage here, but it's just not that great at the moment, and I'm prepared to work to get to the other side of it. And I've been doing a bit of soul searching and looking at myself, and I think that there's things that I can change and things that we could change. So really, I put in a number of I suppose, ultimatums, because it got to the point where I couldn't just continue to try without there being some progress or some action from both sides. And yeah, so each time that deadline was passed, and so I kind of moved away and I found accommodation elsewhere. And then each time, a couple of weeks later, she was, I suppose, ready to work things out. So we went through that cycle, I suppose, 3 times. The last one being when the baby was born, when Joseph was born, and we were kind of working on things at that time. It was quite positive, but again, I just started to notice kind of her moving away, and I'm not really sure exactly where that came from, but I said, you know, in order for this really to work, then we've both got to put into it. It's my love. I said to her, my love for you is unconditional, but the marriage really has conditions on it, and we weren't meeting those conditions. So that was about 3 years ago. So it was about a 2-year process.
And you talked about forgiveness. I mean, that sort of process. It sounded easy, but how was it in reality?
I've learnt a lot about forgiveness and a number of other things as well. And probably the big thing that I've learnt about forgiveness is that it's a decision. And you mentioned it in the earlier sessions, and it's absolutely right. Is that the ability to forgive came from making a decision first, and then the feelings came later. Probably the thing I didn't want you to say on the course that you did, which is forgiveness is wishing somebody well. Right. But it took me a long time to get to that stage. But I could very early on get to the stage of I want to forgive, or I decide to forgive.
What difference do you think it has made for you?
What difference has
forgiving and that sort of process of wishing her well?
An enormous difference. An enormous difference. I dread to think how I'd be if I hadn't forgiven her. And actually, we were talking about it this evening. I didn't forgive her initially because I thought she deserved it. I forgave her because I deserved it. Right. Because I needed to kind of just release her, and that was the initial thing. I can't even imagine how I'd be if I hadn't forgiven her.
If there was one thing that you wanted to say to someone here tonight who's going through a difficult time, what would it be?
I think I would say that you've got to go through the difficult time. There's no point messing around this side of it. If there's something that you've got to face, or something that you've got to go through or address, is you've got to move through it. And I think that's really, really key. Is there's no point ignoring it or trying to deal with it or manage it or handle it, or just push the situation away or kind of hide things. You've got to go through it, and the best way to do that is with a great support network. Yeah.
And how do you feel now? Where do you feel in that sort of process of recovery? Yeah.
I feel great now, actually. I feel really, really good. I've actually got to the stage where I feel thankful for the lot of the things that I've learnt through going through this awful, awful time. But I am able to say that now I feel lucky to have learnt what I've learnt, and I feel blessed in the ways that I have been blessed. But I acknowledge it was kind of a really tough time.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tom, very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you.